Thank you, Naye. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are. Thank you so much and a very warm welcome on behalf of the World Bank. We are so grateful that you are so interested and have shown so much effort and support for this agenda of fragility, conflict, and violence, and want to understand more about the World Bank strategy and approach to dealing with these issues. Just a quick word about why we're here and how this work has evolved before I hand off to Frank. As you know, issues like fragility, conflict, and violence, or FCV, as we call it here at the World Bank, are often seen as humanitarian crises. However, over the last few decades, these have also turned into some of the greatest development challenges. In fact, at the World Bank, we have estimated that by 2030, most of the world's extreme poverty, in fact, up to 2/3 of the world's extreme poverty, will be concentrated in countries and settings which are impacted by FCV. And this is the reason why a development actor like the World Bank has taken a much greater role and has evolved to tackle FCV across a range before, during, and after crises. So we will hear today from two speakers who will be able to share with you both first the global approach, the overall strategy of the institution, which would be Frank Bousquet, and secondly, we'll hear from Sukena, who will speak to how this approach is actually playing out on the ground at the country level. Without further ado, and with much great thanks from all of us, let me hand over to Frank.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody. Very happy to be here. So indeed, I will make two short presentations. I'm very pleased to be with Sukena Kane, who is our country director, who is really the person in charge of the operation based in Sahel. Because at the end of the day, you know, strategy is a paper. What is important to me is what does it mean on the ground? And so therefore, managing expectation, the second presentation by Sukena is really important because it really shows what does that mean when we engage in the Sahel. However, it's also important to say that we are not working only in the Sahel. There are many different settings, and that's why I will cover the main key principle of the strategy of the World Bank Group on dealing with fragility, conflict, and violence. So let me share with you the presentation that, I don't know, do you see it or not? All right, so Anu, can we see it?
Yes, it's now.
Now we can see it.
Okay, many thanks. All right, so listen, I have 10 minutes, so it's going to be quite fast. First point is that fragility, conflict, and violence, why are we focusing it for the World Bank Group? Well, it's very clear. It's because our twin goal includes eradicating poverty. And as you can see here, and you heard from Manu, by 2030, up to 2/3 of the global extreme poor will live in fragile and conflict affected settings. So for us, it's very clear. If we are serious about our twin goal, and we better focus on fragile settings. This is where we need to scale up not only in terms of financing, and we are doing it, but also in terms of effectiveness on the ground and in terms of staffing on the ground, which we are also doing. Two other points on this presentation. Unfortunately, the landscape of fragility and conflict is actually deteriorating and becoming much more complex in many places around the world than it used to be. We have the levels of conflict are on the rise, with more countries that are experiencing violent conflict than any other time over the past 30 years. And also we have over 70 million people forcibly displaced, which is basically the double of the level just 20 years ago. So last but not least, very important also to understand that there is an exacerbation of those challenges which are due to crises, such as the one that we have with COVID-19 today, food security, climate change, gender inequalities. So all in all, to say, two key takeaways from this slide. One, we are scaling up big time on countries impacted by fragility, conflict, and violence, because this is where poverty has been and is increasing. Secondly, there are major challenges that requires a different approach. It's not only humanitarian crisis, but it's actually development working with humanitarian actors, and I will come back to it. So the bank has been actually working over the past years, past decades, on fragility, conflict, and violence. This is not new. It's the first time we do a new strategy, that's correct, but the bank has been, since its creation, working after World War II. In fact, my home country, France, was the first client country just after the World War II for the reconstruction. And as you can see on this slide, there has been actually significant progress made over the last few decades, evolving from this initial focus of post-conflict reconstruction to actually working to support countries across the full spectrum, which is looking at crisis, conflict, and prevention. So at the end of the day, we have this strategy that capture not only the lesson learned over the past decades, but also try to provide guidance for the team moving forward. Just a quick slides here to say actually that this strategy is building on the experience of the bank in this context and draw on some lessons learned that are quite important. The first one on the left of the slide is clearly saying that peace and stability are prerequisite for poverty alleviation and growth. And this is something very important. And that has some implication in terms of engagement, geographically, for instance, and targeting, which are quite critical. And we'll come back to it. And I think it would be important to hear from Sukena, what does that mean in the context, for instance, of Mali? You are going to see the concrete implication of this key principle. The second principle is that it's very important not just to put financing, but to address the drivers, the root cause of fragility, conflict, and violence, because it's really key in terms of prevention of conflict, in terms of promotion of peace. So you can see again this link with the SDG and the partnership as well with other actors. Partnership with other actors, as you can see on the bottom right of these slides, is essential. Clearly, many issues, such as forced displacement, as an example, are not only humanitarian, they are protracted and they require partnership between development, peace, security actors. So very important as well in terms of key lesson. It's not only partnership to mobilize financing, it's partnership to be able to provide development support. So partnership in FCV settings is not good, it's a must. The last point is about recognizing the importance of investing in private sector. And I would like to say that this strategy is not just the World Bank, it's the World Bank Group. And we have been working with very closely, and we are working on the ground very closely with IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, that are working not with government, but are working directly with private sector. So SMEs, supporting informal sectors, making sure that we can create jobs is critical. 80% of the jobs in those settings of countries impacted by fragility, conflict, and violence are not created by government or SOEs. They are created by private sector. And the last lesson learned, which is really at the core of this strategy, is the importance of focusing on people, to have a people-centered approach and empowering and focusing on the most marginal groups. So I will come back to it because it's very important, it has some implication. So very quickly, the strategy has been really developed by learning from other actors, learning from other countries. We have been, including with my team, visiting more than 37 countries in DRC, in Burkina Faso, in Afghanistan, in Haiti, in Europe, in Canada, in the Philippines. I mean, a number of countries that face different challenges. To learn from their engagement, we have been also discussing with government, but also with partners, civil societies, humanitarian actors, security actors, and private sectors. And you can see, I will go very fast on some key takeaways from the consultation. One is actually making sure that we have a differentiated approach. Very important to not put in the same bucket all the different situations, and I will come back to it. Secondly, again, this focus on the most marginalized groups, which requires targeting, which requires approach that are especially well-defined, but also looking at gender, looking at IDPs, internally displaced people, looking at refugees, and looking at ensuring that government can really be accountable and provide services to all groups of the society. And that's very important to focus on the most vulnerable and most marginalized groups. The support on the private sector development is very important, But obviously, in this type of settings, this is not only about bringing an international operator. It's also looking at the local and formal SMEs. And this is quite critical. And the last point is obviously that working in this set of environment, it requires more risk, it's more costly, but at the same time, it requires to adopt a higher risk tolerance. So that's key points. Very quickly, these slides show you, and I believe you received the executive summary of the strategy, but the objective of this strategy, which is really to enhance our organization effectiveness, to support countries in addressing the drivers and the impact of fragility, conflict, and violence, and to strengthen their resilience, especially for the most vulnerable population. So the strategy does it with a very concrete operating framework that you can see in front of you with key guiding principles. There are 4 pillars of engagement. For instance, on the left, you can see the focus on the prevention. We know that $1 invested on prevention can save $16 down the road. And that's something which is very important. It means that we are focusing more and more, not on the post-conflict or the constrictions, but in those countries in which if the government is not scaling up the support to those marginalized groups or groups of people that feel not part of the society, this may lead to an escalation of violence and conflicts. And that's something very important. How to help government to address grievances, to address drivers of fragility before it becomes a humanitarian crisis. This is what we do in countries in Benin, in Togo, but also what we do, for instance, in Niger, and I'm sure that Sukena will come back to it as well. The second area of engagement in front of you on this slide is remaining engaged during conflict and crisis situation. Very important, again. We know that it's very important during these cases, as we are facing today in Yemen or in South Sudan, to also complement humanitarian actors and provide critical support to the most marginalized groups during the conflict. Not doing it and waiting for post-conflict is not only very costly, but also has a huge impact in terms of lives. The third area of engagement consists in helping countries transitioning out of the fragility. And if we are putting, by the way, this different area of engagement, it's because each of them requires different approach, different partnership, different type of program, different type of supervision. You don't supervise a project in Yemen the same way you supervise in Benin. You are not partnering with the UN agencies during conflict the same way than you would partner or not during the prevention. So I think this framework, by the way, it's of course needs to be adapted for each country, but at least the whole objective is to provide guidance under each of these area of engagement. What does that mean in terms of policy, in terms of operation, in terms of activities to be funded, and in terms of dialogue with the government, and in terms of partnership? So that's why we have this area. The strategy has 200 pages, so obviously I'm presenting in 10 minutes and I just give you this slide, but you have to see that under each bucket, there is actually many implications about what does that mean for our engagement. And the last area of engagement, which is on the right side, mitigating the spillover. So what does that mean? It means that it's very important to realize that conflict, refugees, like pandemics, do not recognize border and they don't need to have a passport. So basically what is important is try to see not only at the country level, but also at the regional level, how can we tackle fragility, conflict, and violence? And that's why the presentation of Sukena will be so important, to look at what is being done in the Sahel, not only at the country level, but also at the regional level. But also recognizing, for instance, that when you have the Syrian crisis, you have impact on Lebanon and Jordan. And therefore, it's very important for the bank to not only look at the country level, but also at the spillover and how we can help the countries that are being impacted by fragility, conflict, and violence. So this is the framework of the strategy. Clearly, we are relying on a key point, which is our comparative advantage. We are not a humanitarian actors. We have never been, and we will not be. We are not a security actors. Our comparative advantage is clearly to support national systems, working with government, to strengthen their function, and to build resilience and capacity. And this is something very important because it shows our comparative advantage and also the do's and the don't. The last 3 slides. One is about partnership. we don't partnership for the pleasure of partnering. Actually, this takes times, and this is a high-level transaction cost. We partner because, as I mentioned, this is a must. In the Sahel, Soukena would mention the partnership with the G5 Sahel Alliance, which is critical. We cannot work in many countries. I could mention also Central African Republic without partnering with peacekeepings, without partnering with the MINUSCA, and the same in Somalia and the same in Yemen. So partnership really is very important. Of course, it has to be under the leadership of the government, very important. At the end of the day, this is, as I mentioned, the focus of the bank and our comparative advantage, which is to strengthen the core state function, to be able to be accountable to citizens, to be able to deliver to services across the territory. And therefore, it's very important to understand that we are not just partnering for the purpose of partnering, but to help achieve this mission. And partnership, I mentioned the UN, because the bank has really scaled up partnership with the UN, but it's also partnership with civil society organization, with the Red Cross, with the European Union, very important partners, and also with bilateral partners who are present today. Last two slides, and I will be done, is to show that strategy is good when it's also supported by financing. Otherwise, it's a little bit talk on the paper. And I have to say that thanks to our support last December, the bank has been able to receive an additional financing. We have about $20 billion under the Fund for the Poorest, IDA, the International Development Association, which is to support countries impacted by fragility, conflict, and violence. And as you can see on this slide, on the left side, there has been significant increase of funding for those countries from the bank side. That makes sense. It's actually where poverty has been increasing, but I wanted to show you that it's not only about a strategy, it's also a financing package that is tailored to each of the area of engagement. So we have some additional financing as well for crisis response, for regional approach, for private sectors, for refugee. All the different challenges that I mentioned are actually benefiting from specific envelope or window. So it's very important to see a consistency between the operating framework, but also with the financing. Last slide is obviously to recognize the tsunami, if I may say, and the consequence of COVID-19 in FCV settings, not only in terms of health, obviously, but also I would say in terms of secondary impact that could be significant, given the fragile health systems of many of those countries, the lack of access for many of those groups and communities, and also because it's very difficult to apply some of the key principles in these countries, talking about confinement, talking about social distancing. When you are supporting refugees in camps or internally displaced people, this is not always possible. So the bank has been really reacting fast, as you may know. We have put a number of operations already in many FCV countries. In Afghanistan, $100 million will be provided to help slow and limit the spread of COVID-19. In Yemen, $27 million as well. And there are many packages in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad. So really the bank has been scaling up the financing in a very speedy manner in those countries that are in fragile situations. But obviously, it's not only a question of supporting the health sectors. This is also a question of supporting the macroeconomic situation and providing support to the most vulnerable groups across the territory, which we are doing as we speak. So I will stop here and just thank you. Over to you, Anu and Soukena. Thank you.
Soukena, the floor is yours. Once again, this is Soukena.
Thank you very much.
Country Director for the Sahel countries at the World Bank Group. Thank you, Soukena.
Thank you very much, Nae. Good morning and good afternoon, colleagues. I'm very honored to be part of this conversation. I'm trying to share my screen, which I hope will work in a couple of minutes. Okay, there we go. So I'm very pleased to be with you today, and we'll really, I think Frank has set the stage of what I'm going to talk about. It's about how this whole strategy, as he said, which is nice on paper, but when we try to apply it in a context like the Sahel, what does it mean? So maybe just a reminder, I'm sure you know very well that Sahel is really paying a very heavy toll on the multi-dimensional crisis, which as a result we have increasing numbers of fatalities, of refugees, and of internally displaced persons. So as a result, security expenditures has almost doubled in Central Sahel and keeps rising as the security is deteriorating. So why is it important? Because for countries that have already many challenges in terms of domestic revenue mobilization, when they're using up to 22% of their budget on security expenditures, there's a risk of eviction of social spending. So another exacerbating factor is the food insecurity. So when we look at the latest number, we have around in West Africa, around 14.4 million people who are facing a crisis or worse. And if you look at these numbers that are from the SEALs, which what is called the harmonized framework, we realize that we really need to address this important and very urgent food insecurity. So how do we implement the strategy that Frank has described so well? First, it's about we need to understand, and that's why we use some analytic work that has been developed or led and is led by FCV to better design our engagement across the country, because we want to really understand better the causes and the impact of conflict and fragility to adjust our program to this. As Frank has mentioned, it's very important to focus on prevention and resilience and probably move from a thematic sectoral approach to a more spatial approach. When you look at countries like whether it's Mali or Burkina, and you see how the conflict is moving, Mali was the northern part, but now going center and now further southern part, that means that we really cannot afford to just focus on the conflict area without having more effort on prevention. And of course, we're going to talk about the partnership, why it is very important as well for us, and how our regional, it's a combination of regional program and national program that can help us tackle the issues that we're facing here. And of course, we have to be agile when the situation change, when we have new circumstances, and COVID is certainly one. How do we adjust to those circumstances? So we have the bank has issued in partnership with many other donors in the context of the Sahel Alliance. We put it as a Sahel Alliance studies, but we had contribution from the UN, DP, KFW, DFID, and other donors here that you can see in the slide. So what we have done and for this analytics mainly is to how can we not only increase our dialogue among the partners, but as how can we really agree on recommendations that are focused on prevention and resilience. So what do we find in that assessment? Probably things that you know, but maybe it's an opportunity for me to remind. It's about exclusion. I think there's a perception of by many intergroups of inequalities and marginalization. There's an issue. The other word after exclusion is trust. You have this loss of trust between by the population, by the trust vis-a-vis the state to render justice and deliver service has been very much impacted. The third issue that we see is that the competition over natural resources, and if you add to that the climate change and the rapid population growth, is really putting a lot of pressure on those countries. The other element that the study is telling us is that the boundaries between extremism, insurrection, community, self-defense, and even I want to say, even banditism, even like robbery is getting very fluid, those boundaries. So it's not easy to understand, is this really about terrorist attacks or violent extremism, or is it like insurrection? So that is very an area that is not always easy to tackle and to understand. And the last but not least is that it's really highly contagious, and we've increased risk in border areas, and not only in borders within the Sahel environment, but I think Frank mentioned Benin, mentioned Cote d'Ivoire. We can see a risk on those countries as well, and as well a risk within the Sahel if you go into some areas that have where you don't have terrorist attacks. But for instance, we're seeing now in Mali more attacks or in Sikasso, in Kai, which is really something that as well we should pay attention to. So then what is the bank doing? I think the first thing is that really as part of IDA, that the IDA deputies have really put a lot of resources under IDA 19 for the G5 Sahel countries. The resources are up to 7.6 billion. And if you look at IDA resources, you have what is called the performance-based allocation, which is calculated based on some criteria that we don't need to get into. This is what you see in blue on the side. But what is, I think, very important is that on top of that the IDA deputies have allocated additional resources to countries called prevention and resilience allocation. And if you look at that, that has allowed to top up the resources for each country, with the exception of Mauritania, given the criteria that we use for the PRA. But what does it mean? This is not about only additional resources without trying to address the cause and the impact of fragility. It's about asking countries to make sure that they do have a plan to address prevention and resilience, and that our programs as well do aim at addressing prevention and resilience. So in addition to the performance-based allocation, to the prevention and resilience allocation, we have other windows. Well, we have the refugee window. We have as well the private sector window, and I think Frank very well explained about the extent to which the growth has to come from the private sector. So we want to make sure that we are supporting the private sector with and its additional challenges in a context like the Sahel, or more generally in fragile settings. And of course, we have a crisis risk window. So in terms of resources, we have quite some options for the countries. So what are the two areas that we are focusing on in the Sahel, aligning with the strategy, FCV strategy that Frank has mentioned earlier? I think first is that we want to invest in prevention and resilience to respond to emergency crises. We don't want to wait until the crisis unfold or gets to a situation where even as an institution it's difficult to intervene, but we want to make sure that those areas that are for now are green, they stay green as much as possible, instead of turning red, which is the color when we have an active conflict. So we want to in these areas really invest in some projects or programs that address the issues of prevention or the grievance that we have been able to discuss or to identify, for instance, in the RRA. The other area of focus is really how we can accelerate the maximizing finance for development, and delivering job and economic transformation. And that's quite a challenging one, because we want to support long-term reforms, for instance, in energy, in agriculture, in health and population. And we don't want the government to just focus on the firefighting and forget long-term reforms. For instance, we're giving some budget support, because what we realize is that the government is spending too much money on energy subsidies, agriculture subsidies, and we want to increase that fiscal space so they can put more money on health and education, including in rural zones. So, and of course, as we mentioned, there's an obvious fiscal pressure on the insecurity, and how we can as well understand what it means for governance, including, for instance, most of the countries of the Sahel, well, with the exception of Mauritania, are part of this economic zone. For instance, the one part of YMU, they have the 3% convergence criteria on deficit. That is very difficult, as most of the Minister of Finance will say, when you're dealing with security crisis. And of course, we want to build the capacity to encourage the private sector, including on domestic private sector, because usually these are the ones that will stay even if the situation deteriorates. So the other area I think is really, as I said, is that spatial approach. As you see, we have those green, yellow, and orange areas. So we want to, you see that, for instance, wherever you see the red is really that you have a high intensity conflict area. So how do we work in this high intensity conflict area? We have to work very closely with the government and with our partners to be very to the extent possible to see that we can have some development program as soon as there's a minimum of security that the government or their allies have put in place. We don't want to wait too long, because as someone from Barkhane told us, he said, look, once we secure a zone, we end up building up a classroom here, bringing some solar energy. It's not our job, right? So it's really important then to have that nexus between and that collaboration between the security and the development. So as to coming back to the prevention, we of course there's this the financing element, but I think what is very important is really to that how we can support the government in their prevention strategy. They already have some strategy. For instance, in Burkina, they have what they call the PUS, which is the emergency program for Sahel, Programme Urgence Sahel. In Mali, they have what they call the PSIRC or the SDS. All those programs are, in a way, prevention program, but we realized that we could work more with the government to have an overall and more comprehensive strategy. What we're trying to do as well is really to realize that, yes, it's good to have additional money, but we need to look very consciously at our existing portfolio and apply a fragility and prevention lens, and really take a hard look. Do we still need this project? How can we do it differently, or is it really responding to the current situation? So we realize as well, learning from our existing operation, that we need to think more multi-sectoral. We cannot come and do energy and then do water, and then we're really trying to come in an area and leave that area better after once we leave. That's why we're trying to have multi-sectoral operation. And of course, the issue of forced displacement crisis, host community and refugees. So we have some project that we've financed, whether it's in Niger or in Chad, to address the host community and the refugee through services, to cash transfer, and even some income generating activities. Another area that we are doing in terms of our operation is really to increase budget support. in order to help the government accelerate reform to mitigate all the FCV impact, but as well to make sure that social and development expenses will not be evicted due to security expenses. So both in our and as well have more efficiency in government expenditures, and that's coming back to the what I mentioned earlier about, for instance, the subsidies in agriculture or energy. And of course, as Frank has mentioned, we really need to act regionally because some of the issues are regional. If you look at the three borders area, like the Liptako, the so-called Liptako-Goma, or if you have some pastoralism project, we have one you cannot address it like at the country level. And we have some key infrastructure for all these landlocked countries that are really needed to build those corridors to try to increase the connectivity of those countries. So at the institutional level as well, the bank has been very, and that's part as well of the FCV strategy, very engaged in terms of increasing the footprint, having more people on the ground. It's not more people just having more numbers, but we need to have more people leading projects in the field. So we have increased by 42% people who are leading, because you cannot work in this area and touch and go. You cannot from DC. Yes, we're in a global institution. We very much value having people in DC who will help us having on that global knowledge, but we need a lot of hand-holding. We need a lot of day-to-day interaction with the counterparts. So another area that we use is really the technology. We have what we call GEMS or IBM. GEMS is a geo-enabling monitoring system where we can use questionnaire, and it allows us, a geo-enabled questionnaire allows us to have a follow-up in areas where the bank cannot go. And the IBM is the iterative beneficiary monitoring. We're using, for instance, some cellular phone just to text whether it's a farmer or it's a school, to make sure did they get the food, did they get the books, the textbooks. That allows us when we cannot move, and those countries as well are immense. It's 1.2 million square meters for Mali and for Chad and Niger, actually, more or less the same. Burkina is smaller. And we have as well, we know that we need to have some people who know very what is it about fragility. So we have 2 FCV staff, one in Bamako, one in Yamena, but they're covering all the 4 countries. And we have, of course, field-based security officers, because every week we have a crisis management team to check what is the security situation, how has it evolved, when a mission wants to go on the field, do we leave the go or not go? And of course, this is done in very close collaboration with UN. So, sorry, I just have a last one for you, is of course, we cannot end without talking about the COVID, and which really nobody needed that crisis, but I can tell you that here it's in a country, in countries where you have multi-dimensional crisis, this is just going to exacerbate whatever we have spoken already. So the bank has, Africa region has developed a framework that has 3 pillars: protecting lives, protecting livelihood, and protecting the future. Protecting lives, the first thing that was done is really to have fast-track health operation in all countries to help health system cope with the pandemic, both in terms of prevention, testing, but as well in terms of increasing some very already vulnerable health system, how it can increase their capacity, and having in mind that yes, COVID is taking a toll. Yes, COVID is important, but we have other diseases that we don't want to lose sight of. So that's on the protecting lives. On protecting livelihood, where I spoke about the food insecurity. So the good thing is that now in our operation, we can very easily, when the crisis unfold, we can very easily have funds and disburse funds to help countries address the crisis. The social protection is a very important one in terms of livelihoods. We have many social protection cash transfer program, But quite frankly, the COVID is asking us to think differently, because the main target of the social protection was rural, because the poverty, as you know, the poverty in this initially, and the poverty in this place of the world is rural, is female. So the targeting mechanism, but now the COVID is bringing that poverty in urban areas. So what we're trying to do as well is really to repurpose our social protection program. And we're working as well very much involved in the continuity of education and the continuity of government. So we have worked with UNICEF, but as well with our counterpart, to support government in the continuity of education, which has its own challenge, but could be an opportunity, because as you may know, we have 4,000 schools closed even before the COVID. So if what we're doing with the continuity of education works well, we hope that it may and it will help us deal with this crisis in the education with 4,000 schools that are closed. And in terms of the protecting the future, we're really assessing with the countries what is the economic and social impact of the pandemic, and how can we jumpstart the economy. What should be done the day after. I'll stop here. I'm sure I spoke more than 10 minutes. Sorry if that was the case, but I would be happy to answer questions or provide any clarification. Thank you.
Sukaina, thank you very much for this thorough presentation, very clear and very interesting for all of us. I will now have the task. We have 30 minutes and 7 speakers. So, honorable members of parliament, we only have 5 minutes for each. I will really count on your brevity, but I know you have a lot to say, and know that if you have prepared speeches, we can post them on our website and we can share them with the audience. So, sans plus tarder, je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Jacques Maire. Vous avez été le fondateur de cette initiative parlementaire sur le Sahel. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous en parler un peu plus et partager votre perspective des enjeux de fragilité, conflits et violence? Je vous remercie, Monsieur Maire, pour votre présence.
Oui, merci Madame Bathily, merci à la Banque pour nous donner l'occasion de cet échange avec nos collègues et avec vous-même. Oui, je vous partage là une expérience qui est une expérience que nous avons initiée au nom de l'Assemblée nationale, mais qui est maintenant totalement sous l'égide de la responsabilité intégrale, exclusive des pays sahéliens depuis maintenant plus d'1 an. Donc c'est un travail d'initiateur. Je salue ici la présidence du président Kabadi, notre ami du Tchad, qui effectivement est membre du bureau de l'Assemblée actuellement et qui pourra vous dire nettement plus sur la façon dont la dynamique se déroule. Le sujet du jour, c'est bien lié aux questions de fragilité, de conflit, de violence, et c'est bien ce contexte-là qui nous a complètement mobilisés nous-mêmes en 2018, quand nous avons effectivement pris cette initiative. Pourquoi on a pris cette initiative? Parce qu'en fait, en 2016, 2017, 2018, les conférences de financement ont été très importantes pour les pays du Sahel, en particulier pour le Niger, dont je suis président du groupe d'amitié. Et nous avons eu un paradoxe où il n'y a jamais eu autant d'annonces de financement de la part des bailleurs et finalement jamais eu autant de difficultés pour engager les financements sur le terrain et jamais eu autant de frustration politique à la fois du côté des pays contributeurs et des parlementaires des pays contributeurs, mais aussi du côté des parlementaires du Sahel et des populations. Quand on voit des annonces de bailleurs qui effectivement disent « vous êtes en crise, on va vous aider » et qu'elles sont importantes, et quand on ne voit pas grand-chose changer sur le terrain, eh bien, il y a effectivement 2 conséquences possibles. Soit ce sont les bailleurs qui mentent, soit ce sont les gouvernements qui détournent. Et l'un comme l'autre, effectivement, est difficile à gérer. Dans ce cas de figure, effectivement, dans lequel la violence et la fragilité sont absolument au cœur de ce qui se passe aujourd'hui, il y a effectivement une situation difficile. Probablement, il y a 20 ans, si on avait été dans cette situation avec le Mali, l'Agence française de développement aurait dit « Nous ne pouvons pas travailler efficacement dans ce pays, nous avons donc décidé de fermer boutique en ce moment. » Et bien dans le cas du Sahel, 20 ans après ces crises, effectivement, quand on voit que la fragilité s'étend, les bailleurs de fonds ne disent plus « on arrête », mais disent « on va adapter nos moyens pour faire plus ». De ce point de vue, je pense qu'il y avait un intérêt. Là, je ne parle pas du tout comme représentant français, mais comme parlementaire. Il y a un intérêt absolument majeur à ce que parlementaires des pays contributeurs et des pays bénéficiaires puissent faire en sorte d'avoir plus d'impact et un meilleur contrôle sur cet argent public. Le problème, c'est que dans ces contextes, je dirais, de coopération, nous sommes un domaine, les relations internationales, l'aide au développement, dans lequel le rôle des parlements est limité. En plus, une bonne partie de l'argent public passe par les banques de développement internationales comme la Banque mondiale, qui ont leur propre gouvernance et qui n'ont pas de redevabilité parlementaire en tant que telle. Les interlocuteurs, ce sont les gouvernements et par les parlements, même s'il y a des petites phases de consultation. Et puis, nous sommes dans un domaine dans lequel, Madame Kahn l'a dit tout à l'heure, c'est du développement, mais c'est aussi de la paix et de la stabilité. Nous sommes là dans une logique de stabilisation. Or, l'enjeu, c'est à la fois de permettre d'assurer la sécurité opérationnelle, c'est de répondre aux besoins immédiats, y compris nutrition, c'est de permettre aux services de base d'être assurés, et effectivement, dans un contexte où les garanties d'utilisation et d'engagement d'argent public sont moins réunies que d'habitude. Donc c'est pour ça qu'a été créé le 13 décembre 2018 le comité interparlementaire G5 Sahel, en présence des bailleurs de fonds internationaux et notamment de la Banque mondiale. En fait, si on s'est mobilisé, c'est parce qu'il y a un accord dans la région pour dire que si on fait comme d'habitude, le niveau de la crise est suffisamment important pour qu'on n'y réussisse pas. Et donc, pour pouvoir donner ses chances à cette coopération, notamment celle à l'Alliance Sahel, il faut vraiment essayer de faire bouger les lignes. Et cette assemblée parlementaire, elle est spécifique, elle est originale, pour deux raisons. D'abord, parce qu'elle est effectivement très orientée contrôle, et pas uniquement discussion politique, mais contrôle et redevabilité des partenariats internationaux, civils et militaires, et parce qu'elle est effectivement ouverte au Parlement des pays contributeurs, notamment les pays européens. Bon, de ce point de vue, effectivement, on a beaucoup d'orientations qui relèvent d'une démarche analogue à celle qui est proposée par la Banque dans les différentes mesures. Je prendrai par exemple la mesure 4 sur le cadre de suivi, la mesure 5 sur la définition des objectifs en amont, la mesure 11 sur le transfrontalier, les mesures surtout 15, 17 et 18 sur les acteurs et le terrain. Je pense que pour nous, le message, et en tout cas je parle comme parlementaire, il serait essentiel que les parlementaires apparaissent comme des acteurs à part entière de la nouvelle stratégie de la Banque mondiale, à la fois dans la définition des objectifs, sur le terrain, ce sont des têtes de réseau des élus locaux, dans leurs activités de contrôle vis-à-vis des parlements et en faisant le lien avec les populations. Alors tout ne se fait pas en jour, c'est compliqué ce que je raconte, ça met en cause des questions de gouvernance, mais en tout cas, c'est là le message. Et je pense que ce message est encore plus important à un moment où effectivement le CIP G5 Sahel existe, il est opérationnel, il est à une échelle géographique qui est pertinente et où en plus les engagements internationaux de financement dans le cadre de la lutte contre le Covid-19 sont encore plus importants et mobiliseront évidemment fortement les communautés pour pouvoir être raison du succès. Alors c'est dans cette logique que nous avons nous-mêmes appelé le gouvernement français, mais aussi les autorités européennes, pour que l'aide financière qui soit développée dans le cadre du Covid puisse faire l'objet d'un suivi parlementaire particulier, à la fois sur les suivi des financements, sur les conséquences économiques sanitaires de la crise, sur le bon équilibre à trouver entre la riposte sur le Covid et les autres pandémies, et puis sur les aspects logistiques et sécuritaires. Vous le savez probablement, mais pendant la crise, le terrorisme ne s'arrête pas. Et donc, nous pensons que, évidemment, ça demande que ce partenariat qui a été commencé avec le CIP soit encore plus accéléré en ce moment. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le maire. Merci. Nous retenons vraiment que les parlementaires sont des acteurs à part entière et qui doivent absolument faire part et être impliqués dans nos stratégies. Et vous avez encore souligné l'importance du suivi parlementaire. Et sans plus tarder, je vais demander à Monsieur Dissane Nyoubou du Burkina Faso de prendre la parole. Alors, je ne le vois plus à l'écran. Ben, on va passer tout de suite donc à Patrick Mouyaya et on reviendra à Monsieur Nyoubou. Patrick Mouyaya de la RDC, de la République démocratique du Congo, s'il vous plaît. Vous avez la parole pour 5 minutes. On ne vous entend pas. Parfait. Malheureusement, on ne vous entend pas. Monsieur Mouyaya, on vous entend
Vous
toujours pas.
m'entendez maintenant? Vous m'entendez?
Là, c'est parfait.
Vous
Allez-y.
m'entendez maintenant?
Oui, c'est très bien. Merci.
Ben voilà, mais voilà, les débats est très intéressant parce que nous qui sommes dans des pays fragiles, qui connaissons la violence, le Covid-19, c'est ce que moi j'appelle le virus de la nudité, dévoiler toutes nos faiblesses, que ce soit au niveau du système de santé, du système économique, du système social. Nous réagissons plutôt bien biologiquement de manière globale. Si on regarde la tendance, je n'irai pas dire que nous sommes dans une phase d'immunité collective, mais le Covid, pour nous, va amener une crise plus grande. Et je suis très content de voir que l'approche de la Banque mondiale a changé et veut s'adapter à nos réalités des terrains pour construire des solutions, à mon avis, qui sont plus durables. J'ai entendu le premier intervenant dire ici que $1 dépensé dans la prévention permet d'en sauvegarder $16 dans les conséquences. Et dans ce qui se passe avec le Covid-19, la prévention, à mon avis, semble être la meilleure solution. Mais en lisant la stratégie de la Banque mondiale pour voir comment le pays fragile qui connaissent les conflits et les violences vont réagir, je pense qu'il est nécessaire de relever le point humain. Parce que finalement, le cause récurrente des violences dans des pays et qui se maintiennent sont dues principalement à la pauvreté. Et la pauvreté et la recherche de l'accaparement de richesses, c'est ce qui fait que nous avons du mal ou nous avons des difficultés à construire une résilience. La faiblesse de nos institutions politiques, les déficits des moyens financiers ne nous permettent pas de construire un système qui est très solide. Et les Covid-19, à mon avis, représentent aujourd'hui une belle opportunité. Et nous, les parlementaires, qui connaissons un peu le pratique de la Banque mondiale, nous avons un avantage sur ce qui peut être fait. Nous sommes d'ailleurs en train de discuter de la stratégie du gouvernement en ce moment parce qu'il faut réajuster les budgets pour les restants de l'année et il faut l'adapter pour les années qui viennent parce que les conséquences du Covid-19 vont raviver notre fragilité, peuvent générer d'autres violences. Donc, il faut qu'on entre dans une approche anticipative pour dire quels sont les secteurs où nous devons vite investir maintenant, comment on va orienter ces moyens, comment ces moyens seront gérés à la base et qu'est-ce que nous pouvons mettre en œuvre comme politique publique pour assurer, par exemple, que la recherche, qui est aujourd'hui le point central dans la lutte contre le Covid, puisse figurer dans l'agenda de politique. Qu'est-ce que nous pouvons faire qu'est-ce que nous pouvons déployer comme stratégie pour essayer de contenir les populations déplacées parce que le Covid-19 vient rencontrer tous ces défis auxquels nous devons faire face. Il faut une stratégie cohérente pour permettre, d'une part, de contenir la propagation du Covid, mais surtout, d'autre part, d'anticiper sur ce que cela peut avoir comme conséquence sur notre fragilité systémique. Parce que le Covid-19, combiné à fragilité systémique, va nous engouffrer davantage. J'apprécie l'approche de la Banque mondiale qui a accordé, je crois, à la République démocratique du Congo 47 ou 50 millions et les FMI un peu plus de 360 millions de dollars pour nous permettre d'avoir des ressources qui vont commencer progressivement à nous aider à apporter des réponses sur les questions les plus immédiates. Mais ici, je voudrais insister, il est important que la Banque mondiale, dans le cadre de sa stratégie, puisse obtenir de nouvelles stratégies, de nouvelles politiques publiques qui partent de la base et qui renforcent l'autorité de l'État au point de départ. Parce que les conflits, généralement, nous ne les vivons pas dans les milieux urbains. Les violences et des violences que nous vivons à l'intérieur du pays, dû notamment à la faiblesse de l'autorité de l'État, au déficit de moyens, et parce qu'on n'a peut-être pas toujours réussi les questions des décentralisations. Et donc, vous voyez que nous devons nous inscrire dans une approche globale de remise en question des systèmes de fonctionnement de nos pays. Nous devons l'adapter à la lumière des analyses et des différents plans que la Banque mondiale propose pour que nous puissions avoir une stratégie bien calibrée, pour que nous puissions nous dire que notre démographie, telle qu'elle va progresser, pourra rencontrer tel centre de santé les moments venus, tel nombre d'écoles. Nous devons essayer de calibrer tout ça pour essayer de commencer à la fois à contenir les conséquences du Covid-19, en faire en sorte que ces conséquences du Covid-19 n'impactent pas plus sur notre situation de fragilité, sur nos conflits et les violences que nous connaissons. Voilà un peu, j'espère que je suis dans la marge de temps qui m'a été accordée, ma contribution au débat de ces jours à l'instant.
Oui, c'est parfait. L'alarme vient de sonner. Donc, vous êtes pile poil. Merci encore. Donc, on retiendra bien sûr la prévention, l'investissement essentiel dans le capital humain. Et la Banque mondiale en a fait une priorité absolue. Et bien sûr, l'anticipation. Donc, sans plus tarder, je vais demander à monsieur le sénateur Lou Marbou du Maroc et président, bien sûr, de la commission politique et de sécurité de l'Assemblée parlementaire de la Méditerranée de prendre la parole. Vous avez 5 minutes, honorable. Merci.
Il manque le piment. Il manque les piments.
On ne vous entend pas. Honorable, on ne vous entend pas. Toujours pas.
C'est bon maintenant?
Oui, c'est parfait. Merci.
Ok, alors je reprends donc. Je remercie pour l'invitation et j'ai l'honneur de vous porter le message de l'Assemblée parlementaire de la Méditerranée qui attache une grande importance à sa coopération avec la Banque mondiale et le FMI ainsi qu'au réseau parlementaire irrelatif. Et je tiens tout d'abord à remercier les experts qui nous ont fourni des analyses pertinentes sur la situation au Sahel. Pour l'APM, les questions liées à la région du Sahel sont d'une grande importance et nous leur accordons notre attention depuis de nombreuses années. Pourquoi? Parce que nous considérons au niveau de l'Assemblée parlementaire de la Méditerranée que le Sahel représente la proximité et la continuité géographique du bassin méditerranéen vers le sud. Et donc, ce qui se passe au Sahel nous touche directement. Nous sommes conscients et préoccupés par la dégradation de l'environnement, en particulier, à titre d'exemple, autour du lac Tchad, qui est menacé aujourd'hui de disparition. Nous sommes également préoccupés par la fragilité du développement durable et le manque d'opportunités économiques qui ont entraîné des migrations massives, des tensions internes et des vides sécuritaires, lesquels vides sécuritaires ont été comblés par des groupes armés non étatiques, dont bon nombre a rejoint des idéologies terroristes mondiales comme Al-Qaïda et d'autres. Nos recherches indiquent clairement que si ces tendances se poursuivent, le Sahel deviendra le prochain lieu d'implantation d'un projet terroriste pro-étatique, comme cela s'est produit en Syrie et en Irak. Dans le même temps, et nous tenons à signaler, nous sommes préoccupés par certains dérapages et certaines violences injustifiées, notamment envers les civils, parce que nous considérons que l'état de droit, la bonne gouvernance et le respect des droits de l'homme sont fondamentaux pour le développement et la stabilité du Sahel et de l'Afrique en général. Pour éviter une déstabilisation régionale, il est absolument nécessaire d'adopter une stratégie qui combine à la fois sécurité et développement. Le représentant des Nations Unies pour le Sahel nous avait informé qu'une grande partie des fonds de développement promis et destinés au Sahel ne s'est malheureusement jamais matérialisée et que le peu de fonds qui arrivent sont dépensés pour la sécurité afin de tenter de contrôler les groupes armés, mais hélas, au détriment du développement socio-économique. L'APM s'est également penchée sur la situation fragile du Sahel avec le Parlement panafricain, avec lequel nous avons une convention de coopération et de partenariat, et avec l'OTAN, et nous avons travaillé ensemble sur la migration et la lutte contre le terrorisme. Notre Assemblée parlementaire a plaidé à plusieurs reprises en faveur de la nécessité de soutenir le développement au Sahel et en Afrique subsaharienne, et nous continuons à proposer et à plaider un véritable plan Marshall pour ces régions afin d'y apporter la sécurité et permettre aux populations de vivre dans la dignité et l'espoir grâce à l'éducation, la formation professionnelle et le développement socio-économique durable. À cet égard, l'APM soutient fermement la Banque mondiale dans son approche sur mesure pour le Sahel et nous demandons l'examen de la dette des pays du Sahel, non pas pour son rééchelonnement comme il semble être envisagé, mais pour son annulation pure et simple, sinon sa réduction d'une façon importante et conséquente. L'APM tient, en parlant du Covid-19, l'APM tient à saluer la récente initiative de Sa Majesté le Roi du Maroc pour une mobilisation africaine commune, collective et solidaire contre la pandémie du coronavirus. Pour terminer, en tant que plateforme méditerranéenne de diplomatie parlementaire active, l'APM, qui est en même temps membre observateur permanent des Nations Unies, et avec ses 3 commissions permanentes, politiques, économiques et culturelles, se tient à la disposition de toute action parlementaire en direction et en faveur du Sahel et de l'Afrique subsaharienne.
Merci beaucoup,
et sur ce, je vous remercie.
Mr. Fadi Alame, the floor is yours from Lebanon, please. Please unmute yourself before speaking. Mr. Honorable Alame, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself first. Perfect. I cannot hear you. I'm not sure. I still can't hear you. Okay, so we will go to Burkina Faso and come back to you while the technical teams look at what's happening on your side, okay? Thank you. Monsieur Dissan Youmou du Burkina Faso, s'il vous plaît, honorable,
oui.
Vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais remercier la Banque mondiale pour cette initiative pour qu'on puisse échanger sur un sujet d'actualité. J'espère que vous m'entendez. Et aussi, ce sujet est un sujet d'une importance très capitale. Alors, il faut reconnaître que la Banque mondiale est à féliciter aujourd'hui parce qu'elle est en train de changer sa stratégie d'intervention. Ce qui est remarquable, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, la Banque mondiale associe les parlementaires à sa stratégie. En ce sens que, par le passé, la Banque mondiale donnait des financements à l'exécutif. Et ensuite, le Parlement est obligé de ratifier tous ces accords de développement, les prêts, ce qui va avec. Et aujourd'hui, de plus en plus, l'avis des parlementaires est demandé. Mais dans un contexte de fragilité, de conflit, de violence au Sahel, je pense qu'il n'est plus un secret pour personne. Les pays du Sahel sont réellement frappés et touchés par cette situation qui est très difficile. Le cas particulier du Burkina a fait qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons dépassé le seuil de 1 million de déplacés internes à l'intérieur du Burkina. Et dans un contexte de la COVID-19 qui est là, la situation est beaucoup plus compliquée. La récente actualité au Burkina a montré que plusieurs secteurs socio-économiques ont mis la pression un peu sur le gouvernement pour que les mesures de distanciation ou les mesures sociales prises par le gouvernement pour essayer de briser la chaîne de propagation de la maladie soit levée. Naturellement, vous avez suivi avec moi qu'il y avait des villes qui étaient en quarantaine, il y avait la suspension du transport, mais tout ça, ça a été levé. Dans un contexte comme ça, c'est assez difficile. Et pourquoi cela? Parce qu'on est en train d'assister à une situation économique très difficile pour le Burkina Faso. Beaucoup de secteurs, les marchés, les transports, beaucoup de choses étaient en tout cas au ralenti. Et du coup, le pays est presque à genoux, je dois le dire. Donc, l'intervention, je suivais tout à l'heure dans la présentation de la représentante basée au Mali, que le Burkina a un financement supplémentaire autour de 700 millions de dollars, si je ne me trompe pas, ce que j'ai noté dans mon cahier. Alors, je trouve que ces financements viennent à point nommé et permettront à l'État de relancer l'économie au niveau du pays et de certains secteurs qui probablement étaient en train de connaître vraiment une situation assez difficile. Alors, l'initiative également du G5 Sahel, Alliance Sahel, à laquelle j'ai participé en 2018 à Paris, je pense que c'est une initiative qui permet de faire des investissements également au niveau du Sahel. Mais je dis, en plus du fait que la Banque mondiale associe les parlementaires, il faut que dans l'investissement opérationnel, l'exécutif s'appuie sur les élus locaux. C'est quelque chose d'assez important. Parce que lorsque les élus locaux ne sont pas impliqués ou ne sont pas la cheville ouvrière de ces investissements, ça pose énormément de problèmes. Pour que vraiment ces investissements atteignent les populations et soient opérationnels, il est important que les élus locaux, les collectivités territoriales soient au cœur donc de la mise en œuvre de ces interventions qui permettront le développement au niveau local. Voilà un peu en gros ce que moi je voudrais dire et saluer une fois de plus l'intervention de la Banque mondiale, l'appui qui est apporté pour qu'on puisse en tout cas soutenir cet effort. Et je dirais, moi je dirais qu'un effort de conflit que les gouvernements sont en train de faire avec l'œil donc du Parlement. Nous aurons une réunion ici, les parlementaires burkinabés, nous aurons la semaine prochaine une réunion liée au Covid-19 et à la situation sécuritaire qui est au niveau donc, du nord et à l'est du pays. Merci pour cette parole donnée et nous suivons la suite.
Merci, honorable Nyoumou. Nous avons compris, les élus doivent être au cœur de tout processus de développement. On retient bien cela. Sans plus tarder, I will ask Mr. Fadi Alame to please take the floor. Please unmute yourself first.
Is it
Yes,
my turn
perfect.
now?
Now we can hear you. Perfect.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
because I wasn't hearing you.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit, some little bit of a different approach, and to share exactly what Lebanon is going through at this point, and how it's impacted, or COVID-19 has impacted the way we're doing things at the Lebanese parliament, and what do we expect in the future post-COVID-19. Very briefly, Lebanon is made up of 17 religious sects. It's an unsecular state, and that makes it a bit difficult to govern, whether it's on the parliament side or whether on the cabinet side. Recently, the country had defaulted in paying back its euro bonds, and now it's in the process of negotiating to hopefully get better terms. In the geopolitics type of a setting, Lebanon has almost 500,000 Palestinian refugees because of the Middle East conflict. And also it's having a big share of Syrian refugees, about 1.2 million now residing in Lebanon. So if we add both together, they represent about 1/3 of the Lebanese population. And that has impacted a lot what we do. It's added a burden that Lebanon cannot accommodate on its own. The infrastructure has been exhausted, whether it's electricity, whether it's water, whether it's roads, and you name it, because we have that extra surplus of people on the Lebanese soil. So whatever we did, basically prior to the COVID-19, was mainly working on the budget, getting that budget in place, trying to work on transparency laws, trying to work on lifting of bank secrecy laws, working on whistleblower protection legislations. We've worked on anti-corruption. So that was a major thing for us since we're going through the financial problems that we're going through, whether it was self-made because of a prolonged civil war back in the 70s and the 80s, or whether it's because of the Middle East conflict, or whether it's because of the recent conflict in Syria. So with the COVID-19, things have shifted. And so the focus in the parliament has been mainly working on draft legislations dealing with strengthening the healthcare system. And Lebanon has managed to do a very good job. We've had about 750 cases with about 25 deaths, less than 3.3%. What we did is we tried to strengthen the system. We tried to use the World Bank specific type of a grant and a loan together, which I witnessed, and I was one of those members of parliament that voted for that package, and that helped us strengthen the public sector, and that's one of the reasons why we've been able to manage the COVID-19 and accommodate the number of patients, and we've done a very good job on that. So recently we just convened, the parliament convened, and we also approved another grant for the hospital sector in Lebanon to be able to cope with the COVID-19, which is about $300 million, and that's going to strengthen the healthcare system. We're still working on the primary healthcare setting, and that was the initial grant and loan by the World Bank, which was about $120 million. So that's going to be a major job for us to do and to implement, because that's going to help us control the escalating healthcare costs. So mainly we've done this. We've done more work on the housing, on the public schooling. We've got more work right now on helping the poor and the extreme poor. Some of the World Bank studies cited that Lebanon might have about 50% poverty. So we have this big gap between the poor and the extreme poor and whatever is left from the middle class and the upper class.
Thank you so much.
So this is where we stand at this point.
Thank you very much, Honalame. And now the floor is to Hodan Osman from Somalia. You have about 3 to 4 minutes, please. Thank you. We are quite behind, so bear with us. We are going to try to be done in about maximum 10 minutes.
Thank you, Naeem. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. And I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the challenges that we face as legislators, that when it comes to the Senate floor, we debate regarding allocations for the budget funds. We have a dilemma of identifying what are the essential to fund, as there is a supply versus demand problem. The amount of resources the government have fund the social welfare programs, paying for security operations, not to mention investing for government to invest in economic development, to help with the unemployment practically for young females or the youth. The people need access to clean water, access to quality schools and healthcare and jobs. The weight of all of those activities will minimize resources are very challenging at times. I will say 70% of Somali children do not have access to proper schools or none. And in the mix of COVID-19, we have 835 cases, and as today, and 75 have recovered, and 41 deaths. In the mix of that, we also have urgent priorities with climate change. And we have seasons that flood and that multiple towns will go under the water. And then we have seasons of drought. And Somalis are working hard on how to prevent or to come over climate change. In the parliament, challenges are about 70 MPs, ministers, state ministers, and deputy ministers are also MPs. So it's very hard when it comes to doing balance and check and balances, because the legislative is also being part of the executive branch. With the success that we have this year, I'm also part of SSD committee, and part of that also I am part of the finance committee. So we have allocated a budget for 2% improving in the health, 3% in the health budget for malnutrition and maternity care, and 2% improving hunger in the Ministry of Agriculture. And for my committee, they have achieved passing multiple bills that are required for the debt relief process, especially the Auditor General, that we are proud of being the Auditor General independent, and also will only report to the Parliament.
Thank you, Hodan. Thank you so much for sharing.
It's my 3 minutes.
Of Somalia. I think so, yeah. I'm afraid. Monsieur Honorable Excellence, Monsieur le Président du Parlement du Tchad, vous avez bien sûr l'honneur de conclure cette session, mais malheureusement, nous sommes presque à la fin du temps qui nous est alloué. Donc, nous aurons environ 4 à 5 minutes pour vous. Encore merci d'avoir pris le temps d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Écoutez, je suis très ravi de prendre part à cette vidéoconférence organisée par la Banque mondiale sur les questions relatives aux fragilités, aux conflits et puis aux violences. Vous le savez très bien que mon pays, le Tchad, est traversé et subit ces fragilités, ces conflits et ces violences depuis des dizaines d'années. Et donc, nous, cette question que la Banque mondiale peut poser est le paradigme de changement de façon de gérer ces conflits nous permet sûrement de trouver des solutions aux problèmes auxquels nous faisons face depuis plus de 10 ans. Depuis 10 ans, nous subissons les changements climatiques, relatifs à l'affichement du Tchad et la désertification. Mais que sais-je encore, le manque de pluviométrie. Et donc, tout cela font que le pays est devenu extrêmement fragile face à ces changements climatiques. En plus de ces fragilités, nous avons également le terrorisme qui s'est mis en place. Nous avons également le Covid-19 qui vient de nous frapper en plein. Donc, nous sommes devant une situation où nous avons besoin de la solidarité internationale et également de la compréhension des partenaires techniques et financiers tels que la Banque mondiale. C'est vrai que beaucoup de pays du G5 Sahel ont fait des efforts pour essayer de s'organiser en G5 Sahel pour avoir des plans régionaux de développement, des plans nationaux de développement, lesquels plans ont été financés, mais pas suffisamment. Et ils ont demandé aux partenaires tels que les parlementaires de s'impliquer pour un meilleur contrôle des actions de développement dans nos pays respectifs. nous nous sommes impliqués en créant le G5 Sahel, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure le député français. Mais malheureusement, cette création n'a pas pu faire ses preuves et le Covid-19 a arrêté l'ensemble de toutes ces activités. Nous espérons tout simplement que lorsque le Covid va passer, que le comité interparlementaire du G5 Sahel va reprendre ses activités et que les partenaires techniques et financiers puissent aider le comité interparlementaire à avoir des ressources nécessaires pour lui permettre non seulement de contrôler l'action gouvernementale au niveau des différents pays, mais également de faire venir les parlementaires des pays qui ont contribué, des pays occidentaux, en particulier la France et autres, de pouvoir jeter un coup d'œil sur ce qui se passe dans nos actions de développement au niveau de nos collectivités autonomes. Parce que si vous ne financez pas, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure quelqu'un, nos collectivités autonomes, je pense que le développement ne se fera pas. Le développement doit aller sûrement de la base et vers là-haut. Ce sont ces collectivités autonomes qui n'ont ni eau, qui n'ont ni centre de santé, qui n'ont ni médicaments, qui ont besoin d'être renforcées sur le plan du développement agricole pour permettre à chaque pays de pouvoir avoir les moyens de sa subsistance. Malheureusement, les financements ne sont pas orientés vers ces collectivités autonomes et cela nous pose énormément de problèmes. Et si vous voulez réellement que les partenaires que nous sommes en tant que législateurs puissent apporter notre contribution, il faudra que dans les projets de financement que vous faites pour l'ensemble des pays, vous puissiez apporter votre contribution en finançant les parlements nationaux ou bien les parlements régionaux. Parce qu'en général, le contrôle se fait à travers les moyens dont disposeront les parlements. Et si un parlementaire n'est pas capable d'aller sur le terrain pour contrôler tel ou tel projet, je pense que la Banque mondiale ne peut pas venir nous dire que vous n'avez pas fait votre travail. Donc c'est pour ça que, comme l'a insisté tout à l'heure le député Jacques Maire, qu'il est important que le G5 Sahel, le comité interparlementaire du G5 Sahel soit financé. La deuxième des choses que je voudrais dire, c'est que nos pays sont endettés. Mais cette dette que nous payons à nos partenaires, que ce soit à la France ou bien à la Banque mondiale ou au FMI, dans le cadre actuel, je crois, du Covid-19, je pense qu'il serait bon que les partenaires techniques et financiers analysent cette situation et voient la possibilité que la dette de ces pays du G5 Sahel soit revue, soit à la baisse, ou bien qu'elle soit totalement annulée pour permettre à ces pays de pouvoir se reprendre. L'ensemble des activités économiques et sociales dans nos pays.
Merci, Excellence. Non, nous avons bien compris. Vous avez bien raison. Hein.
Le pétrole a connu une baisse énorme sur le prix du pétrole. Les activités agricoles vont être impactées. Les activités minières sont impactées.
Tout à fait. Excellence, merci encore. Merci beaucoup.
Nous ne pouvons pas faire des transactions entre le Nigeria et le Tchad. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez qu'on fasse? Donc, si vous ne pouvez pas vraiment réduire le niveau de la dette que vous avez vis-à-vis de nous, et si vous ne pouvez pas les adresser,
entendu,
nous allons continuer.
Le message sera passé.
Et donc, je fais le plaidoyer auprès des partenaires techniques et financiers et auprès également des pays amis auprès desquels nous avons des dettes, de revoir un peu le niveau de la
Excellence, Excellence, je suis désolée, nous allons perdre la ligne. Donc, je vais devoir donner la parole à nos intervenants pour terminer cette session. Mais le message est bien passé. Merci encore beaucoup. Une fois, merci. C'était un vibrant plaidoyer pour la réduction ou voire même l'annulation de la dette. Et bien sûr, le rôle absolument essentiel que les parlements et les parlementaires doivent jouer dans les processus de développement. Alors, nous sommes bientôt à la fin de cette séance. Merci encore une fois à tous. Nous avons reçu beaucoup de questions. Malheureusement, nous n'aurons pas le temps d'y répondre maintenant. Par contre, nous vous promettons que nous vous enverrons des réponses individuelles à toutes les questions qui ont été posées. Toutes les questions auront des réponses. Nous avons nos experts qui sont là. Il ne nous reste plus que, on n'a même plus de temps, mais on va vous demander en 5 minutes à Soukaina Khan et à Franck Bousquet si vous pouvez rapidement partager vos impressions finales. Je vais vous donner quand même les thèmes sur lesquels on a reçu beaucoup de questions. Les thèmes sont bien sûr la dette, l'annulation de la dette des pays les plus pauvres. Comment est-ce la Banque mondiale va accompagner les pays fragiles, va davantage accompagner les pays fragiles économiquement dans ce contexte de Covid? Comment on va renforcer les systèmes éducatifs, mais aussi un plaidoyer très fort pour une plus forte implication des parlements et des parlementaires dans tous nos processus de développement. Voilà. Soukaina, peut-être je vais vous donner la parole tout de suite et ensuite Franck pourra conclure. Merci. Vous avez chacun 2 minutes. Hein. J'ai le sentiment qu'on a perdu Soukaina. Ben, Franck, je vous laisse la parole alors pendant qu'elle revient. Vous pouvez peut-être reprendre le son, Franck? Voilà, parfait.
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Oui, je vous entends. Très bien.
Okay. So a few points regarding COVID-19. So I think, on the World Bank group side, I think we realize that the impact, especially on countries that are already in fragile situation, is devastating. And I think what we are doing there are a few things quite important. First, committing $160 billion in financial assistance over the next 15 months for health, but also, like many representatives mentioned it rightly, for economic, social operation to support countries during this downturn, but also to strengthen the recovery. I think many of the interventions were completely right. It's not only about the health, it's actually impacting all the systems of service delivery across the country. So we are really committing on this front. Secondly, as I mentioned, we also have a significant support on the health side. I would like to say also that those countries obviously will be hit the hardest by COVID-19. And that's why the World Bank Group with the IMF issue a call to action, and official bilateral creditors agreed to suspend debt payment from the world poorest countries so that actually they can focus their resource on fighting the pandemic. So I think this is very important. Now, regarding the importance of human capital, I would like to say this is core as part of the strategy, not only because those countries don't have the resource to allocate enough in these sectors as part of their GDP. You can see that it's about 2, 3, 4 less than other countries. And therefore, it's important to help them to prioritize those sectors, but also because at the end of the day, this is probably the best investment that you can do. You want to make sure that young children have the right skills so that we don't lose a generation, and so that those kids are not later on turning to another form of state with all the increase of violent extremism. So I think the whole point about health and education is extremely well taken. Like Soukaina mentioned, we are focusing not only in response to COVID-19, what can be done in terms of preparedness, in terms of PPE, in terms of testing, in terms of laboratory, but also focusing on the other part of the health agenda, to look at malaria, to look at all the other diseases where we need to continue to keep track and to focus on. So I think it's very important. There are many other points extremely important. The importance of local collectivities. I think the representative of Chad mentioned that. I used to be working on Chad of an urban project. And I can tell you the importance of associating local communities. Why? Because at the end of the day, they are the one accountable vis-a-vis the citizens at the second or third tier. They are the one who have the proximity to all the citizens. And it's very important to provide, obviously, support at the national level, but also at the end of the day is to provide engagement with local government. And we do that, by the way, we didn't have time to explain it with Sukena, in a number of countries. It's not only the top to bottom approach. In a number of cases, we are having community-driven development approach. We are working with local government, local communities. Of course, it depends on the situations. It depends on the decentralization, but clearly to say that this focus on local collectivity and accountability vis-à-vis citizens is very important, especially to address grievances at the local level, where local government and local communities play a key role. So I would just like to emphasize these comments from Chad, which was excellent. I will stop here. Many other points that we took note. I think the fact that we have a discussion today with parliamentaries reflects about the importance of engaging with you. I have to say that every year I've engaged once or twice with parliamentaries, including physically at the World Bank. So this is not the first time. There has been many dialogue by the bank with parliamentaries, and every time I think it has been very beneficial. So many, many thanks again for having listened to our presentation, but also for your comments that are well noted. Over to
Thank
Sukena.
you, Frank. And sorry, I think that I lost the connection for a while. I know we don't have much time. I just probably would focus on education. Yes, education is really one of the glaring issues that the Sahel is facing. I spoke about not only the schools that were closed in because of insecurity, but even when kids have access to school, the learning outcome are very low. So we're focusing as part of the Human Capital Project on access, but even more importantly now we realize it's not only about access, but it's about the quality of education. And most of our projects now do focus on quality of education and improving teachers' ability to really provide better learning outcomes. And we're looking into digital platforms, scripted lessons or tablets. One lesson from the COVID is now that we have more schools in the world that are closing, we're seeing more solutions for a country like Sahel. We are totally aware of the magnitude of the challenges, and that's why for us, our partnership in the country, including with parliamentarians, but externally as well with other donors, partnership is key. And we stand by to really continue this conversation and together to try to address many issues that we're facing in this country. Over.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to you, honorable parliamentarians, for joining this meeting. It was really a very rich discussion. Thank you to all the viewers around the world. We will be getting back to you with follow-up. Thanks again. And as Frank stated at the beginning, conflict has no passport, no borders. So we are all together in that fight to really end this critical development challenge. Thanks again, and have a very good day, everyone. Bye-bye.